In this episode, I'm going to be talking about why I focused on GRC. There are aspects of cybersecurity that is not just about breaking into systems. I was so fascinated about monitoring networks. What also stood out for me is that GRC has a very wide scope of impact. Hello, cyber friends. It's good to be here again. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been wonderful, the Journey to Cybersecurity series, the episodes upon episodes. I believe that you've been learning a lot from this series, and that is the reason why the series was created in the first place, so that you can learn a lot as you journey into cybersecurity, as you start out, so that you have a roadmap that can help you to actually kick off your career in cybersecurity. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about why I focused on GRC. All right. I know that whenever cybersecurity is mentioned, a lot of people normally think it is just about hacking, penetration testing, and the blue team aspect. That is not what cybersecurity is all about. All right. You need to understand that it is more than that. There are aspects of cybersecurity that is not just about breaking into system. There are other aspects that talks about assessing business risks, that talks about the interception of systems and people, and the rest of that. And I didn't start out aiming at GRC. I started with cyber defense. I was so fascinated about monitoring networks, analyzing network logs, and the rest of that. But as time goes on, I began to see that cybersecurity is more than just the technical aspect. So I began to realize how fascinating the GRC aspect is when I began to work alongside other teams within the security team, working with security engineers, working with auditors, and the rest of that, where we work on incidents, we work on different projects together. And I also began to see the possibility of me moving towards GRC when I see that engineers, analysts, risk owners will come together, they will solve the same problem differently. Like, they have different approaches for solving the same problem, and then at the end of the day, solving the problem but using different approaches. So sometimes everybody cannot be the one to actually configure firewall. That must be people who would actually define why firewall should be configured, when it should be configured, and how, and then to what level. That is what GRC is about. We cut the shot, right? We tell the technical people what to do. We define the level of how far they should go with their configuration, how far they should go in configuring the network, how far they should go in implementing security, and the rest of that. Dreaming specifically to GRC is that it sits between the intersection of technology, system, risk, and people. And that is what actually drew me specifically to GRC. And because I love understanding systems and also people, I love seeing how these two can actually are interwoven and how they work together. I also love translating complexity into clarity. That really helped a lot, because that is what I love doing, and that drew me to GRC. Another thing I love is helping to translate the technical concepts into business realities. This really are the things that drew me closer to GRC and made me decide to actually say, oh, I'm going to pivot into GRC from cyber defense. And what also stood out for me is that GRC has a very wide scope of impact. One single policy can actually influence security, or can actually improve security across the organization. And GRC is not just about the technicalities or the technologies. It's also about the organizational decisions. That is, certain decisions that are made can actually influence technology itself, can influence people and systems within the organization. And I also love the influence that GRC creates within the organization. GRC is not just about using of tools like the other technical parts where you rely heavily on tools. It is about decision making, right? And also implementing or defining foundational concepts that helps improve security beyond just the use of tools in the organization. Also, another thing that stood out for me for GRC is seeing how, based on your predictions of risks, you can actually beat down the impact of risk before those risks actually happen, or before those risks are taken advantage of. GRC makes that very possible. And those are the kind of things that I love, and those are the things that drew me very close to GRC for me to say, okay, I think this is something I want to go for. A lot of people think that GRC is just paperwork. It's not just paperwork. GRC includes decision making and coordination. In fact, before anything is implemented, before any tools are implemented, before any security measures are implemented, the GRC professionals are the ones who does the T's and the I's and ensure that security measure is actually applicable at that point and has a lot of value to add to the organization at that point. Organizations don't just go ahead to implement security controls. They don't just go ahead to just adopt technology. There must be risk assessment that have been conducted. There must be ability to identify opportunities and identify what could go wrong if that technology is adopted, and all of those activities are GRC related activities, and they are decision making processes that helps to actually establish certain principles, establish certain implementations and executions within the organization. Also, GRC helps to actually build resilience within the organization. And some of the activities that really help building resilience with GRC is conducting risk assessments and documenting trade-offs, right? Another one is audits, auditing systems and the organization at large, and not just ticking the boxes, but improving the security posture of the organization via audits. That is, every gaps that have been identified will actually be filled or they will be improved upon. Controls that are not in place or controls that are not very effective will actually be worked on to become effective. And that's the purpose of an audit. And that helps the organization to build resilience, you see. So it's not just paperwork. It's a lot of documentation, a lot of analysis, analyzing stuff and documenting trade-offs and all of that. But it's more of a mental work that needs a lot of critical thinking and a lot of competencies put into it. Having said that, who is GRC for? Okay, so now GRC is for you if you're somebody that thinks outside of the box, like you're a big picture thinker. GRC is for you if you can balance security with business reality. GRC is for you if you're someone who loves to document, you love documentation a lot and you don't mind attending a lot of meetings where strategies is being discussed. GRC is for you. But if you are somebody that you want to always have a deep hands-on technical work every day, you'll be bored, right? Because GRC is not all technical. You won't be configuring anything. You won't be setting anything up. But you will be the one to actually make certain decisions that the technical people will actually be taking on to implement some of these tools, some of these security concepts. So it's not for you if you dislike meetings. I've said that before. If you dislike meetings, you don't like writing a lot, you don't like reading a lot, I don't think GRC is for you because you're going to be reading, consuming frameworks like ISO 27001, SOC 2, HIPAA, and all of that, regulations, standards. You're going to be reading a lot of policies, redefining policies. You're going to be rewriting standards and the rest of that. So if you dislike writing, get bored when it comes to documenting and all of that, I think GRC is not for you. All right. So that's it. If you check yourself and you see that all of these are your strengths, documentation, attending meetings, talking, you like communication, communicating your thoughts a lot, you are somebody who loves writing, you are somebody who loves looking at security from a business standpoint, you're somebody who thinks outside of the box, you are a big picture thinker, you love solving ambiguous problems, I think GRC is for you. If you are considering GRC, start by learning how systems works. Also, I think another thing you should do is to learn about risk concepts and not just the frameworks alone. Of course, learn the frameworks, the standards and all of that. But very importantly, you need to also learn the risk concepts, risk management, process of managing risk management process, and the rest of that. Also learn how to write and explain technical concepts to people or to different audience, both technical and non-technical. Learn how to write and explain technical concepts. Also learn to talk to different people in different cybersecurity path, because in GRC you'll be collaborating with cross-functional team from procurement to the security engineers to legal to other business units within the organization, finance. Yeah, you'll be speaking with finance, you'll be working with people from finance, you'll be working with people from legal, you'll be working with people from this, security engineering, tech ops, people ops, and the rest of that. So you need to, speak with people at different business units. If you are considering going into cybersecurity, these are steps you can take to actually get yourself involved in it. You need to also understand that cybersecurity is not about the most technical person in the room. It is about the most effective person. So if you are not so technical, you are somebody who is not, a tech savvy, don't feel bad. And that is why GRC is a path that is created for people like you. So the only thing you just need to do is understand how system works, have those technical understanding, right? But it doesn't mean that you will be the one to actually implement those concepts or security concepts, but you must understand them. I hope you've been able to learn one or two things in this episode. If you be considering GRC, I want you to comment GRC in the comment section. And if you have any question regarding this episode, the previous episodes, or generally outside of this series, maybe your question is not, it doesn't relate with anything I've discussed so far, just drop your question. I'll be in the comment section waiting for you to actually answer your questions and probably create a video about maybe your question or a topic that you think that I've not touched and really want to hear from me. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next episode. Bye.